I'm Nazim, I'm a hip-hop and spoken word artist. I come from Sudan. Also an activist and organizer here as part of the rap battles for social justice.
I write my legend every night on a paper-boated dreams. Then I make them float and wait and hope they stroke my mental stream.
The question has to do a lot with my sister and like introducing me to online communities that discuss about, that focused on Sudanese issues firstly, but as being Sudanese, poetry is also a big part of that. So I got to see a lot of poetry in those communities. You know, I was really young. I was like around 10, and going on from then, just continued using poetry and writing, and later on hip hop as a way to express myself and describe my world.
I guess talk to me about like that political influence that you put into your rap.
Well, growing up listening to hip hop from a young age, I was lucky to have an older brother who introduced me to a lot of good music. You know, Tupac, Bone Thugs and Harmony. Later on, I'll discover more artists, Nas, Rakim. Those artists were from the surface not overtly political, but when I grew up and I interpreted the lyrics a bit more, and I was more mature and able to do that, I realized that hip hop for a long time has been a tradition for. Much like your magazine, of being a voice for the voiceless, and how hip-hop is rooted in that tradition of resistance and subversion to the status quo and system. So, you know, it was a natural transition for me, especially being from Sudan and having a lot of problems and opposition to the way things are run in my country, to continue that tradition in my music.
I couldn't bear to choke, think of the buried past, nurtured the skeleton of drive that I used to have. Look for the elegance of light shining from the past to chase the dark and save the spark that's lighting up the path.
Earlier on when I started doing rap, I found it really important to talk about a social justice issue that's close to my heart, and kind of share my thoughts and my disagreements and my my problems with what's going on regarding that issue itself. Later on, I started realizing that as a music form, hip-hop, away from the lyrics, hip-hop is more digestible when you're not preaching to people. So I try to make it more indirect when I'm writing about politics, when I'm writing about social justice issues. And I guess theater and caricatures and using characters in general kind of was a way for me to do that. And I try to reflect that in my music today. I guess one of my closest ones to heart would be the first song that I ever recorded. Just the process of recording was a whole different thing, but it was also one of the strongest political pieces I find that I wrote, and it's called "I'm From." And that one was written. The reason it was so strong to me is because it was actually written in Sudan months preceding the Arab Spring, and then when the Arab Spring came out, when I actually recorded it, it just felt so pertinent for what's going on in the region. And at that time, I lived in Egypt. I was finishing my high school.
Said I wish I could be Sugarman. Head in the sand like this life was just a subtle plan. Love for the fam and the money never understands.
For that track, specifically, it was really inspired by watching the Netflix documentary, Searching for Sugarman. And it was about an artist, I don't want to misquote his first name, he goes by Rodriguez on record, and he's an artist that spent his whole life not being recognized for his art, even though he was famous in different parts. It was a classic example of the industry making money off of an artist without, giving them their due. But what inspired me specifically was that when he found out about his fame, he was really humble in accepting it. He continued to live. He stopped making music after one of his hits blew up worldwide because he didn't know it was a hit. And what really inspired me was that he took it in stride. He was really humble about it, and he was still living, a very humble life. And for me, it was the question of, could I do that? Because artists always like to say that we want to do it for the music. We want to do it for the music. We're not doing it for the money. But at the same time, in a capitalist world, you gotta live, and you want to feed yourself, and you want to succeed. So that was a big part of why I wrote that song, and I wrote it at a time when I had just graduated, and I was trying to figure out where I would move on next in my life and one part of me wanted to continue doing an artist, but the other part was the activist part who wanted to be on the street, organizing and mobilizing. So it's talking about that conflict between this and that, and also conflicts about whichever lane I choose, how will I deal with my inner demons in trying to answer it.
Said I wish I was Nina Simone, head in the zone, take a dive inside the deepest poem. My microphone brings to life in its sincerest form, not overblown, just precise as what the heart has known, where it was grown.
I'd like to definitely shout out to the Rap Battles for Social Justice crew, which I'm a small part of, and it's something that's close to my heart in the sense that it continues the tradition of hip hop and speaking against oppression and subverting the system and subverting the status quo. So that's a project that I'm intimately involved with, but also I feel that it's important for a lot of other people to join as well, and it's a collective. So I'd like to extend an open invitation for anyone who also sees that as part of their motivation in life to join.
I wish I could be Sugar Man, head in the sand like this life was just a subtle plan. But for the fam and the money never understands just who I am, you want the passion or a mother brand. I couldn't tell you just if I'd resist. Well, I insist to dare and find if it'll get to this, or shy from risk in a life where I would pay to live. It may be this.